This is an internal view of the skull. Right now, this is the anterior surface, and then this is the posterior surface. You can always tell this is the posterior surface because of this large foramen magnum, so you'll know that this is the occipital bone. So this is the occipital bone, and then this is the anterior surface, so this is the frontal bone. So I'm going to touch it right here, and you can see where you're looking at. So that's the frontal bone. Alright, so frontal bone. Now, if you look at this bone right here, so what you're looking at is this bone, which is the ethmoid bone. So this is the ethmoid bone. Regarding surface markings, you have this part that is poking out. This is crista galli, the crista galli, and then right here, this is the cribriform plate. Right? So the bone is the ethmoid bone, and then surface markings, you need to know the crista galli and also the cribriform plate. Now, right below that, this is, so it looks like this kind of wing-shaped. This is the sphenoid bone. So that's the sphenoid bone. It has this part which forms the lesser wings of the sphenoid bone, and then these parts which form the greater wings of the sphenoid bone. So lesser wings and then greater wings of the sphenoid bone. Right here in the middle, this region is called the sella turcica, and then straight through here, this is the hypophyseal fossa. Okay, so sella turcica, hypophyseal fossa. Now also you can see this foramen right here. So this right now is the optic foramen. So this is the optic foramen, and then if you look a little bit more to the side, you'll see this part right here, which is kind of triangular in shape. This is the superior orbital fissure. So that's the superior orbital fissure. Now below that, this right now is the foramen rotundum. So this is the foramen rotundum. You can also see it on the other side. Again, this was the optic foramen, and then below that you had that superior orbital fissure, and then right here, this is the foramen rotundum. Okay. If you look at the bottom border of the wing here, you have 3 foramina on one side, and you also have matching 3 foramina on the other side. So starting from the most medial, this is the foramen lacerum. Next to that, this is the foramen ovale. And then next to that, this is the foramen spinosum. So you can think LOS. And again, on this side, this is LOS. So this is the foramen lacerum, and then this is the foramen ovale, and then this is the foramen spinosum. Foramen spinosum right here. Okay, so again for the sphenoid bone, so this is the sphenoid bone. You have the lesser wings there, and then the greater wings right here. This in the middle is the sella turcica, and you have the hypophyseal fossa right here. At the very bottom part of the wing, you have those 3 foramina. This here is the foramen lacerum, and then this is the foramen ovale, and then this is the foramen spinosum. So LOS. Again, L, O, and S here. For the this part here, this is the optic foramen, and remember that the optic foramen you can also see from the front. So if I poke this through, and then I will flip it over to the front, you'll see where that came out of. Okay, and you can also see the other part. So that was the this was the optic foramen, optic canal, and then right here this was the superior orbital fissure, and then this right now is the foramen rotundum. Okay, so that's the foramen rotundum, and let's try to poke it through. It's not happening, so but this was the foramen rotundum on this side. Okay, so that was the sphenoid bone. Okay, so remember that on the sides you have the temporal bones. So these are the temporal bones there, and then of course in the back where you have the foramen magnum, this is the occipital bone. Okay, so kind of in this region in between that temporal bone and the occipital bone, you have this this heart-shaped foramen right here, which is the jugular foramen. So that's the jugular foramen. Okay, so jugular foramen on this side, and then you can also see it on this side. This is the jugular foramen. Okay, and you can see that over here you have this right here, and then you have it on the same on the other side as well. So on top of this jugular foramen, or more anterior to it, this is the internal auditory meatus. Okay, so that's the internal auditory meatus. The carotid canal on this internal view is all the way here. Okay, so this part right here, this is the carotid canal. It kind of opens up onto this foramen lacerum. You can see it on this side again. This is the carotid canal, and then this was the foramen lacerum. Okay, so jugular foramen, internal auditory meatus, and then this is the carotid canal right here, and then you had that foramen lacerum. So this is the internal view, but remember that the jugular foramen looks, and the carotid canal looks slightly different on the inferior view. So on the inferior view, you had this, which is the jugular foramen, and then right on top of it, you had the carotid canal there. Okay, and of course, you do not have an internal auditory meatus on the inferior view or exterior view. Okay. So that should cover everything. Just remember, this is the foramen magnum. You had that heart-shaped, which is the jugular foramen. On top of it, this was the internal auditory meatus, and then of course this was the carotid canal. And these two were the temporal bones. That should cover everything.